Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Thanks for your patience. We're a little bit late getting started, but I think it'll be definitely worth your time today. Welcome to today's event. I'm Laura Dillon from MS Dynamics World, and we're here today for a session all about Dynamics 365 for Retail 101. And our presenters today are Rod Helmick and David Slater with PowerObjects, and it's great to have them here with us today. So as we get started, please know that we do welcome your questions. You can enter them in at any time during the presentation in the Q&A box that you'll see over on the right side of your event window. And I know that Rod and David will be leaving time at the end to answer as many of those as they can. So without any further delay, I'm going to hand things off to Rod to get us started.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Retail 101 for Dynamics 365 for Retail. We're excited to have you on, and as Laura had mentioned, we're Rod Helmick from PowerObjects, and we're an HCL's technology company. And just to give you a little bit about us, PowerObjects is 100% focused on Microsoft Dynamics 365, driving success for your end-to-end journey with our 4 pillars of service, support, education, and add-ons. And with that said, you can see our 4 pillars of success with service, support, education, and add-ons. And now a little bit about ourselves. So I'm Rod Helmick. I've been with PowerObjects for just a little over a year now. I've been in the retail vertical for well over 30 years. As you can see, I'm quite dated in my picture there. So come with a lot of retail vertical experience, which includes retail, grocery, food, beverage, wholesale, hospitality, manufacturing, and project-centric expertise in business process review and engineering, process improvements, program project management, onshore and offshore management, business analysis, and also training and quality assurance. And I'm going to turn it over here to David real quick and let him give a synopsis on himself.
Yeah, thank you, Rod. Good morning, everyone. My name is David Slater, and I have been with HCL PowerObjects for just a little over a year as well. My background stems from 25 plus years in supply chain, and some of the verticals that I've worked in have been manufacturing, warehousing, 3PLs, wholesale, a lot of pharmaceuticals and food and beverage, apparels, as well as entertainment. Some of my project-centric expertise is project and program management, solution design, business process re-engineering, obviously solution design, as well as solution selection, vendor management, and training. So I have implemented both ERP systems, including e-commerce and retail, as well as warehouse management systems, and that has been the primary focus of the past 25 years of my career.
Excellent. Thanks, David. We're going to go ahead and go through the agenda, what we're going to cover today. Supply chain overview, business process dynamics 365 review, and we'll allot some time there for questions and answers. And what we want to do is we're going to try to demo as much as we can with the 365 application. We're not going to do deep dives. We're going to certainly stay about 10,000 feet in order to get through this demo. There's a lot to share in the next hour. I think we've got about 50 minutes or 55 minutes now, so we're going to try to get through all of those and also certainly leave hopefully about 5 minutes here towards the end of the session for any questions that you may have. But we'll certainly try to give you a good flavor for what the solution has to offer. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to David.
Thank you, Rod. The next couple of slides that are coming up are just some retail terminology. We're not going to go through every one, as I'm sure everyone on the call probably is familiar with these. But obviously, supply chain in and of itself is just the complete product life cycle from sourcing to shipping, selling and shipping, which includes sourcing the product, obviously shipping, moving the product, selling the product, and then shipping to the end user. I'm just going to pick another one. Letdown is just the process of replenishing warehouse locations. This is often found in some of the upper racks in a warehouse where pallets are let down from another location to a proper picking location. So I'm going to just go to the next slide here so we don't waste too much time. One thing I wanted to, in terms of retail, one of the terms I wanted to talk about here is the PLU, or the price lookup. Obviously, that's used to identify like grocery store produce items. You'll see if you go in and buy an apple, you'll see a 4 or 5 digit PLU on the product, and also a UPC, which is a universal product code, which is unique, and it's assigned barcodes that are associated to a SKU or item. And these are mainly used as a point of sale and stock taking units. Another thing too I wanted to just mention real quickly, it was landed costs, and that basically is everything from shipping to the warehouse, any additional expenses. It's just the landed cost of the material into your warehouse. So some general terms here. Obviously, I think gross margin speaks for itself. Private label are products that are manufactured for one company and sold to other companies that have their own private label on them. RFID is some technology that is applied to a product to identify and track it all throughout the warehouse, as well as all throughout the supply chain. And let's go to the next slide. Thank you, Rodney. Let's talk about assortments, and that is a product mix that is suggested or recommended for a location. So if we had let's say a retail brick and mortar, we know that we're going to have some apparel, and assortments could be shirts, pants, sweaters, different types of assortments of apparel. The merchandiser obviously is very important in all of the retail aspects, and they are absolutely responsible for the planning and placement of products in location. They work hand in hand with the buyer to determine what the product mix and those demand quantities should be. And this is probably one of the most difficult positions within the retail industry, is the merchandiser and buyer working together and working off some sort of demand planning system for their retail stores. So let's go to the next slide. Thank you, Rodney. A couple of things I just wanted to mention here in terms of some of the channel terminology is the EMV. And that's a technical standard that is often referred to as the chip and pin for capturing credit card information. We also have, I'm going to just talk about this very briefly, the pop-up store, which is a temporary retail site intended for just a short period of time, generally less than a few days. You'll see a lot of these in the shopping malls around Christmas time. And they're just a very short-term type of retail channel. So we can go to the next slide. And so how does this all work? The retail supply chain. We had talked earlier about the buyer. The buyer then works with the merchandiser and planner, working from a demand planning system, or it could be, we've seen a lot of manual demand systems off spreadsheets. They then together source the product, and then that product is then shipped to a DC where it is received, and then the assortment, planning, and replenishment starts for the retail stores, and then that is then shipped to the retail stores. And those can be brick and mortar, e-com, as well as wholesale. So that's kind of the whole flow of the retail supply chain. Very simple flow here, but just kind of wanted to give everyone the kind of just an overall visual of how this all flows together.
Yeah, so David, I'm going to add in here too. I think this gives everybody the visual of all the feature functions that's behind D365 that we can leverage the D365 for retail application in order to accomplish all of these steps that it takes in the retail supply chain to ultimately get the product into the customer's hands. So this is a good overall visual. I use this a lot in our Retail 101 boot camps that we have internally, and it just gives a good pictorial of really how that process works. All right, I'm going to move along here. So David?
And so the process for the product movement, obviously there's the planning of all the products and what products we are going to source. And that also has to do, obviously, with the financial planning of the product, the merchandise planning that we had talked about. We then go into the buy mode, where the buyers obviously source the product, and then they start to determine what price they're going to charge for those products, and that can be done by a number of different ways, including obviously average costing, landed costs, gross profit margin that they would like to attain, and then moving that product. Obviously that entails supply chain management that we kind of just went over in the previous slide, and then inventory management as well. And is the inventory on hand? Is it, where is it located within the stores? And then how do we market that product? So there can be obviously a product launch. There's brand management, marketing techniques going on at the stores or within your online store. And then we move into the sell portion where there's sales and tender management. And this entire process for product movement can be found within the retail module, which is fully integrated into D365. So we, from a D365 standpoint, have a totally integrated database that includes all of these functions for the retail process. So just to kind of emphasize that, obviously in the middle you see some of the key processes of retail, but like we kind of went over, we have the buying and merchandising and the warehouse distribution. The D365 module also has call center functionality, store channel operations, inventory management, security, financials, and then reporting and analytics. And all of those different areas are comprised within the retail module, and it is fully integrated into D365. So there is not a standalone system doing all of this. This is full functionality from D365. So I think we're going to get started with security here. I think Rod is going to show you how it affects the retail users and what kind of security can be set up.
Yep.
Did you want
Thanks, David. Yeah, thanks,
Okay.
David. One of the things we're going to kind of walk through this in a business process standpoint. As you could see on that spin wheel there, those were all the offerings that you can do within D365. So we're going to really demo this in a form of, what does it take to set up your system and be able to utilize it? I think that starts with, being able to secure your application and also make sure that your features and functions are only visible to those who need to use those functions within the organization. And right now you can see here that this gives you this is a Contosa retail environment, and it gives you all of the modules available. And again, these are all integrated. Often I get a question to me like, is the retail a completely separate application compared to, for example, F&O? The answer to that question is no. It's fully integrated in with the financials, the warehousing, the inventory, all of these modules here. It's definitely not a standalone, and it's fully integrated. So we're going to go over here real quick to my panel, and I've got my systems administration. And from these functions, I can actually control managing users and setting those users up. And I'll give you an example here. Here's examples of all the users that I have within my system. I can then go back. And one of the key things here that, sorry, I'm going to select here is, sorry, I'm going back here, my systems configuration. And the nice thing here is I can actually have all of my roles here that are out of the box with D365 and assign the individual users those roles. And there's also defined duties associated to those roles. So as you can see here with the system, it gives me a full dashboard capability of being able to manage my users and be able to set up and assign those users to roles and duties within the system. And I can take out of the box roles and duties, or I can actually create my own roles and duties as well with that. So I'm going to go back here to my PowerPoint slide. And we just covered the security aspect. The next thing that we're going to do, we just demoed that. We are going to go into the financials a bit and discuss that. And as I did mention on the financials, it is fully integrated, and the retail system does require some aspects of assigning, for example, financial dimensions, because as I get my point of sale transactions over or any type of inventory movement, there's usually financial implications in order to keep my ledger and my balances up to date in my financial system. So those are out-of-the-box requirements. And right now I'm going to go over to demo. On the financial systems, the capabilities that we have, for example, and I'm going to go through, again, the business process. I can create purchase orders and be able to get those purchase orders into my system by having functions and dashboards capable to view my purchase orders, my purchase order statuses, if they're in approved status and reviewed. I can see if there's any right now out here that are in approved status or purchase order inquiry if I want to drill down into those. But as mentioned, purchase orders are going to be my lifeline of what the buyer is responsible to do to get the product into either my distribution center or warehouse or directly to my store. And then I'm just going to cross over here real quick. And again, you'll see here from a dashboard standpoint, I've got general ledger that I can go into and actually set up all of my chart of accounts that are associated to that. I also have my accounts receivable modules that are applicable in order to do any accounts receivables and accounts payable. and any budgeting that I might have to do or cost accounting. So as you can see here, just out of the box, again, fully integrated solution here, setting up my financials, being able to get my product into my retail organization. Next thing is buying and merchandising. Again, the key aspect of this here is getting the product into my my retail entity and then being able to distribute that product accordingly into the system. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of visual merchandising presentation here where you know, the importance of, you know, the buyer and the merchandiser, and what the merchandiser does is being able to do shelf planning aspects so that I know how much inventory that particular store can handle from both an initial stocking and then a replenishment aspect. And as you can see here, here's an example of some of that visual presentation that I'm sure all of us have encountered when we go out to the stores. Aisles and end caps, again, these are key elements in order to understand how much product a store can fit. Sometimes they have back office that can actually store some of the leftover inventory, but again, this is key to understanding just how much inventory a particular store can handle. And again, you can see some from a fashion standpoint, soft lines. You can see that how important it is from just a visual presentation to an inventory standpoint of knowing how much of that product needs to fill the store so that it looks like it's got a stocked look and feel to it as opposed to an out of stock, to where I don't have a lot of inventory there and there's empty shelves, and that's not good presentation from a customer standpoint. And one of the things that is key here, as you can see in the prior pictures, is shelf and merchandise planning that gets done in the shelf merchandising that is applicable to a retail organization, and how key products are on certain levels of the shelves. This is a science in itself in order to make sure that the right product are in the right shelves. Also, vendors pay premiums to these things in order to get their product put on various levels of the shelf. And again, these are all capabilities that can be done within the 365 solution. So we did cover a little bit of the buying and merchandising aspect with the purchasing, and I'm going to go back to my demo here on 365. So as you can see here, we do have the capability of going through all my purchase orders and being able to get the inventory in. Once I get my inventory in to my business, I can then go into my inventory management. And this, as a particular merchandiser will do, is begin to replenish and determine replenishment methods to roll out product to my store. And I can utilize that with sending both outbound orders, my transfers, to my store locations. I can also do store-to-store transfers to my locations or back to my warehouse if I've got any product that's going to end up being returned to vendor. And again, you can see the full features here of being able to handle all of my product movement that's happening within my retail organization once I do have the product here. I'm going to skip back over to demo. Warehouse and distribution. This is another area that I can set up in order to establish storage requirements and handling for the product, control processes to receive, manage, and ship my product, quality control and assurance for the product prior to shipment to store or customer. Because again, one of the things that I can do is segment my warehouse so that I can make sure that I have enough inventory to fulfill both store requirements and also my e-commerce or multi-channel or my call center requirements for fulfillment of orders, and keeping control of inventory accuracy. And again, here's a good picture of what the 365 warehouse and distribution process gives you the capability of doing. And I'm going to quickly switch over to my distribution side, or my 365 side. Oh, I'm sorry. I've got my screen here, and I'm going to go through my warehouse management. Sorry, I've got some things popping up here. Warehouse management. And as you can see within the warehouse management, I can actually create loads of shipments that's going to be happening that I need to fulfill my stores, and loads for my trucks. I've got picking schedules that I can do to set up my picking workbench to fulfill my orders that replenishment has created. Also, the customer orders that are coming in, I can actually control that and be able to make sure that I get the orders out from an e-commerce standpoint and fulfill those orders by doing waves and economic picking. I think that's going to be it on the warehouse side. And I'm just looking at this and going through this to make sure that I get enough time to get through everything here. Inventory management. This is still, a very key aspect to my organization. Inventory management happens at multiple areas. One, within my distribution center and warehouse, because it's key that I got the right product and the right quantities in order to consider my forecasts that are needed for sales. And it's also important that my stores have the right inventory levels in order to make sure that the stocks and the shelves look full, and also I have enough to support any type of promotional aspects or events that may be coming up in those stores. So my inventory control module allows me to do physical inventories and cycle countings as well. And I can do that based on timings and methods. I can scan every item or scan one item and key a quantity based on our inventory methodology. Products in receiving and return ensure accuracy of scanning and receiving the product. I can do quality control and reviewing as the product's coming into my location or my warehouse. And also doing returning a product with vendor RTVs or returning product from the store to the warehouse. Also within inventory control, we can monitor and maintain inventory levels. We can do physical inventory and cycle count processes. We can restock our shelves and our picking locations, as David had alluded to earlier with letdowns. We have those letdown locations as extra storage units, and as I pick out of my picking locations, we can perform automatic letdowns that will indicate to the warehouse that they need to replenish the pickable slots or picking zones, so that again you can get efficient economic picking, and work closely with buyers and merchandisers and store operations in order to maintain the inventory levels that are required at store level. Planning and allocation and replenishment. We need to keep products flowing through the supply chain. We also need to use historical data and trends for product availability and analysis. And what we do is we use that in order to consider our replenishment rules that we're going to use to keep our stores updated. Determining channel expansion and promotional events to determine demand of the product. Determines order points for ordering from our suppliers, because from a replenishment we can replenish not just our stores from our warehouse, but we can also then replenish our warehouse from our vendors. Determine order points for reordering from the warehouse, and again this is related to the store level in order to make sure that we have min-maxes, for example, at our store level, and once we reach a minimum level for that product as we sell through, it'll automatically create an order for replenishment from the warehouse to that store location. Planning and allocation and replenishment, again, minimum, maximum replenishment, reorder points. We can also do seasonal rebuy. For example, for our Christmas stock, we can always go back and look at what we ordered last year and determine based on our sales what we may need to increase our order and do a seasonal rebuy for that. And then statistical replenishment. This is where we require at least really a good 1 to 2 years worth of history in order to see a pattern of that particular product sell-through, and then determine what my forecast will be in order to ensure that I've got the product that's needed in order to fulfill my sales or my sell-through that I projected. And as you can see here, we do have a screenshot here of the inventory management aspects. So we did cover that a little earlier, and I'm just going to go through that again on the actual screen. This here is our inventory let me go to the inventory management area. Again, this controls getting the inventory where we need it. We do have the item counting by being able to set up item counting and item cycle counting that we need to do, or physical inventories that we need to do for that. I did mention the quality management aspect so that we can ensure that quality management and spot checks are made of the merchandise as it comes in to ensure that it meets our expectation and quality before sending it out to the stores. Transfer orders, and then the system obviously has a lot of capabilities around the reporting and inquiries that is capable to track our transfer management, our inventory statuses throughout the system. All right, I'm going to do a time check. David, how are we doing? All right.
We're doing very good.
Okay, good. I want to make sure we allow enough time to get through all of this. So next areas that we're going to cover is reporting and analytics. This one is really a nice option because one of the benefits that you get with Dynamics 365 is obviously what Power BI can bring to the table. And I've got a demonstration here of using Power BI in our dashboards. So if I go over here to my retail store financials, for example, as you can see in your workspaces here that you've got, we can go through and also have Power BI incorporated into those. And I like using this one because this one gives me just a good pictorial of just what the power of Power BI can bring to the table here, to bring all the analytics together from a dashboarding capability. And for this purpose, I'm just going to remove all my filters. And this is an example here. As you can see, this is statewide sales by distribution. I also can do category product performance, store monthly performance, employee monthly performance, channel payment performance, and order category sales summary. So to give you a flavor for this, this gives a nice pictorial of how my locations are doing, and I can select at any point a specific location, for example, Georgetown, and it's going to give me all the employees associated to Georgetown and the product sales that have happened in my Georgetown location. I can then unclick that, brings me back to my main overall picture. I can then click on Burlington, for example, and also have it just finite down to showing me the information relevant to Burlington. And again, just the overall dashboard of giving me how my various regions or channels are performing, and also my product categories, how those are performing as well. My team sports, action sports, apparel, and footwear across my territories. Give you another example here, and I'm going to clear out the filters. This one gives you an organization category sales performance where I can see, based on my categories, how they performed over the time period, action sports and against all of my particular channels, and how they performed across each of those channels. I can also look at my payment summaries, see how my payment summaries have done, and these are just the payments that have been tendered across my channel categories from a retail point of sale to my e-commerce channel. And then I can see how my employees are doing. Again, I'm clearing out my filters, and it gives me a graphical representation of how my employees have performed against the product categories from a visual standpoint. And again, I can drill down into any particular one of these. Store monthly performance. Again, I'm going to clear out these. And you can see how my channel monthly performance has been doing across my categories. And again, at any point in time, I can select what specific store number that I want to drill down into and analyze. And we'll go one last one, and this is just the category and product performance. Again, you can see how each of my categories, I can see that electronics in this particular case is one of my biggest selling categories. Okay. So again, I wanted to show you the power that the analytics aspect can bring to the table with setup. And again, out of the box, I was able to get in. And what's nice about the D365 and what you get out of the box are there are standard templates that can be used with Power BI, and these are some of the standard templates that are used out there, and I just simply attached that to the data that I had against my legal entity and brought that information in for a visual. Okay, I'm going to switch back over here. Operations. This is the exciting one. The operations aspect is really kind of the store and the e-com channel capabilities that the system has, and it's fully integrated. We got what's called MPOS, where it's all cloud-based, and you can also have replication of that channel database to ensure that you maintain connectivity if you do lose connectivity, and you can still perform sales transactions. And I'm going to go through the store operational aspects, customer service focused, retail selling process, manages and hires staff, retail floor and shelf management, store administration and facilities management. It manages inventory. You can do POS audits and reconciliation, loss prevention aspect, visual merchandising, and cost management. Also, from a business process standpoint, customer service focused, retail selling processes, retail manages and hires staff. Oh, sorry, this is like a duplicate slide. One of the things, too, that is good with this system from a cross-channel standpoint is ways that I can leverage D365 in order to get and attract customers. And I can do that with a lot of different ways. There's an out-of-the-box loyalty program, which again can create loyalty programs, and it's seamless between being able to track points and redeem points through your retail channels using the loyalty process. I can establish retail coupons that can be used in order to redeem at the point of sale or even to redeem online to get customers in my channels. I can also do special discounting. I can have affiliation discounting, employee discounting, and things like that that I can set up into the system in order to have the system automatically calculate and give those discounts to my special customers or whatever affiliations I may have set up out there. I can also set up retail contests for customers in order to get those in. And I can set up promotional schemas to promote product and have promotional sales, new store openings, events for example, pre-Christmas sales. I see in the retail environment right now there's Christmas stuff that's already being put out in the shelves, and I can pre-sell that and pre-promote that and give special incentives to get that product sold. I can also do, when I'm end of season, I'm trying to get rid of inventory, I can do promotional schemas there and promotional price markdowns in order to get that product out of my location so I can prepare for my next level of seasonality. Some of the aspects of point of sale that you can be, these are just some visual pictures of what a point of sale looks like and the setup operable for that. Also, this is an example of an MX915 credit card processing device. And LineBusters. This is a really nice feature and function because, again, out of the box with the capabilities that I have with my point of sale, I can build screens and fit the displays accordingly for my LineBusters and have that be fully integrated to my store so that I can go out and I don't have to necessarily be tied to behind the cash wrap and be able to get out and interact with my customers and actually transact with the point of sale. So I'm going to show you kind of a brief overview of the store and channel operations that I can have in my system. And I'm going to quickly jump over here and go to my retail store management, give you an actual visual of this. As I mentioned, and what's nice about this is I can create workers. So within Dynamics 365, I have users, those who have access to be able to get into D365 and perform functions. But naturally, I have store staff that I may not want to have to set up with an Active Directory user. So what this gives me the capability of doing is setting up these workers that do not need to have access to D365, but I need to account for them and be able to give them access and login capabilities and be able to audit what they do at the point of sale. So the system gives me the capability of setting up these workers and also giving these workers particular job roles and job functions, which again limits what they can do on the point of sale device. This here gives you an example of the retail stores that I can set up that are associated with my channel. I can also then set up my registers and devices. This gives you an example of the types of registers that can be out there that I can define, and the devices. For example, this is here, a device is a one-to-one relationship with a register. You can see that I can designate this as a retail cloud point of sale, or I can do this as an on-prem, meaning that I can download this application directly to the hard point of sale unit, and that way it can act independently without having cloud access. But this is the capability that the system gives you to either define it as I'm always using the cloud and I can use it as a thin client, or I can set it up as a fat client and actually download the application directly to that location. Workers, sales. Some of the other things over here that I can do naturally within my D365 side is you can see some of the reporting capabilities that I have. I can also look at top product reports, category sales reports, top selling reports by staff. I did mention about the loyalty cards, being able to set up loyalty and being able to look at the loyalty points and looking at any type of gift cards that might be applicable as well. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go through, David, how are we on time?
We've got about 14 minutes left.
Okay. So I want to give you a good feel for what the point of sale capability has out of the box. And there's a lot of feature functions here that you can do with this. Let me get this off my screen, I'm sorry. One of the nice things here, this is an out-of-the-box screen that comes with the system, and it just gives you a flavor for what can be done. And I'll go through some of the product visuals. Again, if you have pictures of your products, again, these are all my product categories that I've got set up there. I can drill down. And again, you're seeing this from the perspective of I'm on a cloud point of sale right now, and I can transact. And I can sit here and I can look at the pictures. I can look at the product categories. I can also, if I need to search for a particular product, if a customer is asking about it, I can look at it there. I can also see all of my product categories listed here and go directly to, say, for example, my category of camcorders. See, these are just stock photos here. Next thing I can do is I can actually go through, and let me just select one of these, for example. I can select a particular item that I want to be able to do, and again, I can select by searching, or I can just simply scan an item if I've got a barcode scanner there and scan the item that I've got here at my point of sale. I can select a particular color that I want. I can add that to my cart. If I go over here, you can see that I got one item added to my cart. And here's the presentation that it looks like on my point of sale. I can add a customer to this transaction, so I can track that customer. It doesn't have to necessarily be a customer based on loyalty. But if I also have a customer affiliation or any type of discounting, I would also tag that customer to this transaction so it can be tracked. You can get all the information needed down here on the bottom here with what your lines are, how many lines are on the point of sale or on this transaction, the tax applicable, my subtotal, and obviously my amount due. I also have capabilities here of seeing I can attach a loyalty card. I can set various quantities. I can pay cash, pay card. I can also create customer orders from this if I do want to ship it directly from the store. If, for example, the customer says, well, I'm from out of town, can you ship this to my home? We can do that and have that shipped to the location. Discounting, I can do line item discounting. I can do total discount transaction level discounts. And again, when I mention who the cashier happens to be, these are all controlled by what level of authority that particular person who is the cashier has. Because if, for example, I do a line item discount or a total transaction discount, I may need a manager override or a manager approval. So at that point in time, the system would prompt and indicate that a manager approval has to be done, and the manager has to come over and key in their code to allow that discount to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and pay cash for this, tender it out. Sorry, I'm going to get this off my screen. And as you can see, the transaction is completed. Now, if I want to go over and take a look at all my transactions that occurred, you can see all the transactions that have happened. Here's my transaction that I just did. This is the item that was selected. If I want to see the actual receipt for that, I can see the receipt visual. I can then also, if I want, I can return. So if a customer comes in, for example, and they don't have a receipt, I can actually look up transactional history and look for that particular product or look for that customer receipt. I can scan on it by a customer if I've selected by a customer, and I can perform a return then even though they don't have a receipt, and I can find that receipt in the system and be able to automatically return that. Here's another item, for example, that was performed, and these are the two items that were on there. And if I did want to, again, return that, I can select and say I want to return this particular item and that. And I will perform the return, and it was defective. And I'm going to bring that over, and it will automatically bring that over into your transaction. Okay. The nice thing is, too, since this is fully integrated, I can set up the times that I'm pulling my transactions back to Dynamics 365, almost actually very close to a real-time occurrence. And again, this is from a time of being able to see these transactions occur over here on D365. There's batch jobs that get set up out there that can either happen every minute, every 5 minutes, or some of the older traditional, depending upon volume of transactions, may only pull over once a day. So again, you can set that criteria on how often you want those transactions pulled across and have them visible into Dynamics 365. Okay. I'm going to go back to my screen here real quick. Call center. I'm going to quickly go over this because I think I've got about 7 minutes, and I do want to allow any time if there are any questions. Call center capability, if any of you are not familiar with what a call center is, a lot of times businesses will have a catalog capability, or during various times of seasons, for example, the Christmas seasons and very busy high volume seasons, they may set up a call center in order to do specific customer orders. The call center gives you the ability to have a dashboard and have a call center to where customers can call in, interact with your staff, and orders can be generated from the call center. It can also act as statusing to where if customers need to find out the status of their order that from an e-com order that was shipped but yet not received, or if it was still in progress, they can call the call center, and the call center has total capability of being able to go in and actually see the customer order and let them know what the status of that particular order is. And we'll jump over here to the screen real quick. Oh, I selected the wrong one. Sales order processing inquiry. As you can see here, it's the dashboard that your call center can use, and they can basically visually see all the orders and what status those orders are in. They can look up by customer and find out what customer status is in. I can also visually see any orders that are unconfirmed, basically that they have not been processed yet through my warehouse, any delayed order lines that might be out there. If I've got, and again, these can be customizable for your view as far as what you may want to see as an individual. I can find a particular customer or find a sales order if the customer is not maybe does not have a name in the system, and they can actually then say, I've got this sales order, so you can look it up by the sales order. Okay, we've got 4 minutes left. Let me go back over real quick to my slides. I've demoed that. So at this point in time, I'm going to open it up for any questions that you may have.
Great, thanks, Rod. Yeah, this is your time now. If you have any questions, go ahead and type them in there on the Q&A box over there in your event window. And we do have a couple that have come in so far. So let me see here. Let's see. A question came in earlier. Which version of D365 is this?
This one's 7.3.
Okay.
And I know most recently 8.1 came out in just actually last week. So we'll be looking to get that upgraded because we do have a customer that is going to 8.1 here in the next week or so. So we're going to get this version upgraded.
Okay, thanks. And then here's another question. Is Power BI functionality available with an on-prem solution, or do we need to be online?
Let's That I'll have to take away. I don't have my Power BI expert here as far as being able to determine if that is. I'm just I'm gonna throw it out there. I believe it should be capable to do that with an on-prem, but again, without my Power BI expert online, I would not want 100% that. But I can use that as a takeaway, and if that individual kind of leaves a name or email address, we can get back to them.
Okay, yeah, we'll definitely have that for you to follow up with.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, here's a question. You said device was one-to-one with register. In the demo, it looked like there were differing counts. Can you explain?
Different accounts.
Differing counts.
Oh, for D365, as far as the point of sale solutions are concerned, the both between the register and the device, it is a one-to-one, and I think as you could probably see there were a lot of different devices based on my territory and my store locations. So a store, for example, can have many registers and devices affiliated to those, and I think with the numbering schema there, we also, seeing this as a Contoso test environment, you may see some numbering schemas that look like they're multiples, or you can have 3 to 5 registers or devices per location. I hope that answered the question, because if I understand that correctly. And I can quickly, if we have time, go over there. Was there another question while I'm doing this? I can.
Yes, there's one that says, how can stock count be performed on POS? This is a multi-part question, so I guess we can do it one at a time.
Yeah, stock counts, let me see if my base system has this as well. As you can see here on the stock, you see there's a stock count button. Excuse me. I can actually perform stock counts directly from my store system and be able to, I can use scanners. If I've got portable handheld devices that go out, I can do that and have that go through and be able to register stock counts. Then it's batched up, so I can finish my stock counts and then in turn have those stock counts fed up into D365 from the store. And then I can determine if I want those to post automatically or if I want a review process in order to post them, after review, or demand recounts if if it meets or exceeds a certain variance threshold. But again, I can set that up and I can actually have that be capable there at my store.
And can multiple users perform stock count for the same product if they're carried in different aisles? Okay.
Yes. Yep.
And
again, on this,
posted to the same. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to finish the question. Sorry. Would it be posted to the same count journal?
Yes, because again, based on how I want to post that, I can either wait and consolidate that and post that in one journal, or if I'm getting them up, let's say for example, it's not a full physical inventory, it's a cycle count. I can then group and batch those journals accordingly, because I may be cycle counting over a period of days as opposed to, when my store shuts down and I physically have a cutoff where I'm counting that entire location.
Okay, I think we have time for one last question. We've reached the top of the hour, but it did come in, so I'll go ahead and put it out there for you. It says, how can a worker be associated to a store without having an AD account? Do they still need some sort of external identity?
No, that's actually the nicety, because one of the things with the worker is it can be set up independently so that I do not need to set up every single store associate with an Active Directory link. Because again, on the MPOS aspect, I don't want to say it's standalone, but it's kind of its own little entity. And with that, that's where it allows me the luxury of not having the Active Directory and just creating that worker ID, and it's got a password associated to it. And then with that worker, I give specific point of sale permissions, and I can, for principal time, I can actually show you as well just kind of what that looks like by selecting a particular worker, for example, and I can give it the password that is associated to this particular worker. So every time there's their worker number, they would have to key this in, because if you look at, if I sign off here, I got a transaction in process. So if I key my worker ID number and my password, that allows me to get in based on my point of sale permissions, what I have the capability of doing on my point of sale. So again, this is the nice thing about the product, that every single user or cashier out there in your store does not have to be set up with Active Directory within the system, but still can be locked down so that it can be audited on everything that that particular worker and worker ID number does in the system from a point of sale standpoint.
Okay, great. Well, I think we need to wrap up there. Rod and David, thank you so much for your time today. It was a great presentation, and thanks to all the attendees for your attention and the questions. We did record today's event, and we'll be making a copy of that available. If we did not get to your question, we'll make sure that Rod and David have your name and email address and the question so they can follow up with you directly. And then one last thing, as you're exiting the event, if you would just keep your eyes open for a very brief survey that will pop up just a couple of seconds. The feedback does help us here at MSDW, and it helps our presenters as well. So with that, we're going to end things there. Thanks again, and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.